Hi, friends. How are
Hi,
you
Hi,
guys?
good.
fine, good.
That's great. That's great.
Been a
So
crazy
we're
day.
so
I also
sorry,
want
dear.
to talk about Texas weather, very bipolar. It was very sunny and now it's like in the 40s. How does that happen?
Oh,
So now it's colder.
Now it's cold, yes.
That's interesting because you were referring to the Fahrenheit type of
Oh,
meter, right? Yes. So I thought 40.
yeah.
That's quite hot here in Brazil. That's quite hot. But I think that in here in Brazil it would be like maybe 15, right? Much colder.
yes.
That's interesting. 40 here in Brazil is very hot. Yes, very hot. So everybody, we're here on our final day of this book, this amazing book, Missionaries of the Light. We're very happy that we're ending one more book, the book that we had prepared to this special month of February, shorter but a very large and big book. We got a little tricked. Um, so we're at our final day. We're very happy. We're very grateful, and we have loads of things to talk about today. Um, Already, we need to say that we are not able to bring everything that a book has for us. It's impossible with this amount of time that we have here. So we're highlighting the most important parts, the parts that touched our hearts the most. So that's what we're here doing again this amazing Wednesday. So before we start, Nora will bring us some prayer as usual, and after that, we're gonna talk about these amazing teachings.
All right, guys. So let us just jump gently and gradually at our own pace into this beautiful vibration. Dear Mother, Father, God, we thank you so much for today, Andre, Louise, and everyone else who cooperated in this book. As we end this book, we ask for always just to come out with a different lens, a different perspective, and always to learn more about ourselves, starting within, but also to learn more about others and ways to help. So, as we end this book with all these beautiful lessons from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 20, that we can just become much better beings full of your divine love and divine grace, dear Master. With that, we say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. So be it. And with that, we ask permission to begin.
Thank you, dear, so much. So we're in chapter 16, which is called Incorporation. This title is very interesting. It's interesting to quickly return to chapter 15 so we can remember where we are. So we were, Nora was last week bringing us this beautiful story and about that lady called Caesarina who was with a baby and she lost the baby, was this unconscious abortion, as we've seen. So we were in this perspective. That's what we were talking about last week. And then we enter chapter 16, incorporation. So this is another lesson. They are at someplace else. Um, in this chapter, Jean Louis progresses with his studies, and he says that. So sorry. And he says that wherever he could, whenever he could, he returned to the crust, learning and cooperating in the group in which Alexandre was his advisor. In the first case of this chapter, a collaborator of Alexandre named Euclides, this is a different name, but it's quite common here in Brazil, asks that a disembodied gentleman named Dionisio can attend a meeting. as his family was inconsolable and they were asking very much so they could see him. But Alexander said he was not opposed, and the collaborated. Alexander himself suggested that Dionisio could be incorporated into the mediumistic organization of a sister called Otavia. And thus he could be heard in front of friends and family. So that's where we are in this chapter. That's the situation. Alexandre explained that although he did not object, and this is a very important thing for this chapter, that attempt would hardly be successful as Dionysius was still in a certain emotional imbalance. He was in an aid station and he still was very close to the cross. He was not very dematerialized yet. And he had disembodied, his disincarnation was very recent. The family did not nurture a living Christian faith, and I'm talking about Dionysius' family. And the mediumistic apparatus was somewhat unstable, and this is about Otavia. Euclides said that he understood all this. But that he wanted to reiterate the request because the brothers who were incarnated and asking for communication were very faithful servants. So, whenever a person who has this high spirituality and has some credit asks, all the spirits they try to help. So, Alexandre said that Euclides could announce to Dionysius what that they were going and that they would try, and that he himself, Alexandre, would take him to the meeting. So Andre Luis and Alexandre go to that aid station where Dionisio was to take him and have the first conversation. When they told Dionisio that he was going to communicate, he got really, really happy and excited. This was an interesting thing. And a thing that is interesting and worth mentioning is that Dionisio was a spiritist while he was incarnate. He was already inserted in this study group vibe. But Alexandre reminded him how complex, and he knew that communication by a medium, via a medium, was. So he warned him that they would pick up him and leave him a few hours before the meeting at the medium's house. Andrea Luis was very curious, as always. The next day, they went to the house of Otavia's house. Alexandre left Andrea Luis there with Euclides and Dionisio. So the three got there. An interesting thing is that the medium's humble house, they were describing that it was very humble, but in that house there was a place where she was used to pray. She was always using that certain place at his house to pray, and did her meditation. And this place, in this place, the atmosphere was comforting, light, and balsamic. This is very pretty. Andrea Luis saw Tabia for the first time and realized that she was downcast. So Euclides said that she was an excellent collaborator and that unfortunately she lived with an ignorant and almost cruel man. Her life was very difficult. Her husband was not an easy person. He said that the medium's husband was accompanied by dangerous entities from the lower areas. Euclides said that as soon as they promised the day before that Dionysio would attend so that things wouldn't work out, the psychological state of the medium's husband was worsened by evil entities. So this is very interesting for us to focus. All those bad spirits, brothers and sisters of ours, they knew what would happen, and they were already trying to stop them. He woke up the husband because of those evil spirits. The husband woke up more nervous than usual, got drunk before lunch, insulted his companion, his wife Otavia, and even inflicted some physical torment on her. Because of that, she had suffered a nervous shock and ended up affecting her liver. So Andrea Luis could see that she was quite pale. She was not with a normal skin tone. Euclides said that she was not bedridden only because she received magnetic help from several spiritual nurses. Otherwise, she would be quite worse. Euclides um, says a very beautiful phrase in this moment. He says this: suffering, when accepted in the light of living faith, is a source of spiritual wings. This is so pretty. Um, guys, this story is full of details. We don't have time for everything that was happening at her place. It is worth mentioning that the medium's husband, his name was Leonardo, he tried to stop her from going to the mediumistic meeting. He didn't got that. They reached after everything this conflict had passed. They went to the meeting. So they reached a large room where it was the Spiritist Center. They got there precisely. The book brings us precisely 7:45 p.m. 15 minutes earlier. The service with incarnates began 8 p.m. Dionisio spoke through the medium. So that happened. As we've put here, she wasn't at her best. She was going through loads of stuff in her personal life, so she couldn't be the best medium. But she tried. She was a very good spirit. She was full of faith. A very interesting thing that this chapter brings us, and we were talking about this before we started the study today, is that Dionysio's son, after the meeting, said that it was not his father speaking. So I'm sorry, his children, they started doubting her. And another of Dionysius' children, thoughtlessly, he added exactly this: I don't believe the manifestation. If it really was that, he would have responded to my inner questions. So this son or daughter, he or she was expecting to receive a couple of really I don't know. As we've seen here, they were expecting something really special and maybe big. I don't know, maybe this huge announcement of love or some foreseen of the future. We don't know, but they did not get happy. And loads of insinuations began in the gathered group regarding the communication. This is very sad. And as we've talked, this is quite common here in Brazil in this spiritual type of meeting. After the meeting, Andrea observes that few people present believed that communication on the part of Dionysius actually took place. Few. Most believed in animism on the part of the medium. And this word means that the medium would be talking or acting by herself. Among us, this is a very interesting thing that Alexandre brings us. Among us, control, discipline, self control prevailed. Among them, incarnates, imbalance and restlessness blew away. The human family awaited the father emotional and still subjected to less constructive passions. But we helped the brother so that his soul remained calm and ennobled for the benefit of his own earthly relatives. Alexandre notices that Andre Luis was quite disappointed with everything that had happened and makes this final remark. Almost all terrestrial people who take advantage of our cooperation feel they have the right to doubt. It is very rare for a companion to come along who feels he has a duty to help. This is very, very, very interesting because when it comes to going to spiritual meetings, we are always very happy when it comes to receiving. But when it comes to giving something or collaborating with the meeting, helping one another, we are not that happy. We get a little distracted in that area. Do you guys want to say something, or can I go to chapter 17? Can I?
I could say something. I
Go
don't
ahead.
know.
Okay, go ahead, dear.
So, Sir Conan Arthur Doyle, the one from the Sherlock Holmes author, right? He has a whole book on different spiritual cases. He himself has lots and lots of stuff, and um, Houdini as well. I don't know if you know the story, but Houdini stopped to believe because the medium that channeled his mom uh, left a message in English, and he was like, "Well, I can't believe it because my mom was from Hungary, right? She we would be Hungarian, so I don't believe in this." And they tried to explain to him, "Well, the medium, he's." I'm sure. I think he was British or something like that. And so the message is from your mom. Don't focus too much on the language. Focus on the message. Focus on the vibration. I think he got like I don't believe in these spiritual things anymore. But he nails a point there, with the family expecting a specific thing, and I feel like they were blocking everything and not receiving the message because, which we do this a lot, right? We expect things our way. That's part of the selfishness. You know, and there was this other program, and I shouldn't bring it up if I don't remember, but it was all about mediums, and these were non-spiritist mediums, but it showed the same thing. People did not believe because the messages were not exactly like the family members. We also know Andre has taught us a lot. He himself has been changing or evolving in the spiritual realm. So, him communicating back with his family would be different now because he's changed. He's evolved. So there are these things we also to keep in mind. I don't know.
Yes, yes. We were talking about that. Chico Xavier suffered a lot with that because
Mm,
multiple times people threw the papers where he was writing on his face because they did not believe. They got angry because they were expecting something else. This is very sad. And I think that even when we are not that happy with the message, at least we should maintain certain respect with the medium because he's there trying to help, and he's not the spirit, he's just the machine. So why attack the medium? It's very, very sad. Chico suffered a lot with that. So we enter chapter 17, which is called Spirit Counseling. Counseling. In this chapter, Andrea Luis follows the care of a disembodied priest. This is very interesting, who lives in the region of darkness. The brother is taken to a mediumistic meeting where he incorporates into a medium and is clarified by a doctriner. A doctriner. This entire process is requested and accompanied by the mother of the ex-priest. In this story told by Angel Luis that he brings for us, I think there are two main passages, and since we don't have much time, we need to focus on them. In the first one, Andrea asks if there is really a need for the help of the incarnate's brothers. Would it not be possible to help the disembodied without making use of the mediumistic table? Mentor and then Alexandre, the mentor, and he explains that the clarification work could be done without the help of the incarnates, but the mediumistic table also helps the incarnate brothers because by listening to the stories and the suffering of the disincarnates, the incarnate workers can better reflect on their own conduct in the earth. In addition, on the contact with discarnate with the medium helps in the recovery of the sufferer. And as we've seen, there are other perspectives that are really important in this type of connection between discarnate and incarnate, especially because the fluids are quite different, and both incarnates and discarnates, they may need help from each other. And then he says this: no, um, Alexandre started. It is not an essential resource. We have several groups of servants in our plan dedicated exclusively to this kind of assistance. The regeneration activities in our colony are full of institutes dedicated to fraternal charity in the sector of lightning for the misguided. The aid stations and emergency organizations in the different departments of our spheres of action have advanced service centers of the same order. In certain cases, however, the cooperation of human magnetism, as we were talking about, can influence more intensely for the benefit of the needy who are captives of the zones of sensation in the crust of the world. Even there, however, the collaboration of earthly friends, although appreciable, is not an absolute and indispensable factor, but when it is possible and useful, we make use of it. In the contest of mediums and human indoctrinators, not only to facilitate the desired solution, but also to provide living teachings to the companions involved in the flesh, awakening their hearts to spirituality. This is very interesting. And as we've talked about um, on other days and on previous books, um, it's really interesting when we see the book Memoirs of a Suicide when it talks about this, because we really see the amount of need that discarnates that are in a painful and in those lower areas they have of incarnate and human being fluids. They really need that. And it's interesting and makes total sense that those that are living in that amount of matter, they would need matter. So the second passage, in the second passage, Andrea observes that several assistants on duty collected the mental forces emitted by the brothers present, including those that followed abundantly from the mediumistic organism. Noticing Andrea's astonishment, Alessandro explains what it is about. This is very interesting. He says, the material represents vigorous plastic resources for the benefactors of our sphere to make themselves visible to the troubled and afflicted brothers, or for them to temporarily materialize certain images or pictures indispensable for the revival of emotion and confidence in the unhappy souls. With the rays and energies of varied expression emitted by the incarnate man, we can form certain services of importance for all those who are stuck to the vibratory pattern of the common man, despite remaining distant from the physical body. This is very, very interesting. See this amount of possibilities that the spirits have to help us and to see. And this is very interesting when we think about Jesus, to see spirits coming down, materializing literally themselves to help us. This is so, so pretty because it is not good. And I don't mean good in like it's not good for them, but it's not how can I put this? It is not a pleasant sensation for a spirit that is pure to be here. It just like we would not be pleasure pleased to go to a place that is not like clean or has not the best vibrations. When we think of a high spirit coming down to help us and renouncing that amount of love and purity and beautiful images that they have already the right to be living in. It's really, really, really beautiful to see the amount of care that God has for us. And when we think about Jesus Christ coming down, like, can a son be like circumscribed to as the smallest thing on earth that we could think of, like an atom? This is huge and very, very pretty. At the end of this chapter, Andrea Luis says that each individual case, the work was like a different lesson for his soul. This is very pretty. And perplexed by the diffusion of light that was becoming ever more intense and alive in his mental realm, he realized that celestial spirits could bring the most beautiful and effective help to spirits of darkness, as we were talking about. So that's how the chapter 17 ends. I used more time than I should. So sorry, guys.
No problem. Let's chapter obsession 20. 18, chapter 18, obsession. Andrea had Alexandre permission to go with him to the group meeting that Alexandre cooperate, helping in the case of obsessions. Where necessary to reduce as much as possible the vibration of the environment, limiting the number of incarnates involving in the service of spiritual assistance. André asked Alexandre if everyone who is obsessed is a medium. Alexandre explained to André that everyone is a medium, including the disincarnate ones, because they are the intermediaries from the high spheres, but we can be intermediaries from lower areas when he lost their balance. However, an obsessed is invisible sick to her human eyes that need attention, prudence, and love. Obsessed and obsessor are to come linked by resonance. For an incarnate worker is too hard to know who is the victim in this case. The cure is a process of awareness. Our incarnate works cannot make promise of cure. Alexandra explained to Andrea that the 5 cases they will have that night, only one young woman has a chance to improvement. The others will just be helped in order don't get worse. The young man has been restoring her psychic forces. He's resisting by her own efforts. The temptations come from lower zones. Through prayer, meditation, self-knowledge, she's not waiting for a miracle. She's taking our opportunities that our spiritual friends are improving to her. At the night of the meeting, only 2,000,006 incarnate works with experience in this case of obsession to receive treatment. And they also tell us that our obsessors, darkness spirits of those 5 were there too. But without seeing the presence of the spiritual works, once they were on a different frequency. André explained to André that 2 missionaries spiritual works came to help to communicate with the darkness spirits. André realized that as soon as the missionaries spiritual works arrived, the obsessor spirits who were there talking each other began to whisper. One of 2 missionary works got near to an unhappy lady and started saying edifying words to her. She was very disturbed with her rev arguments, justify her actions, even mentioning Jesus. He, tell, he tells her that our Master Jesus taught us love each other. Everyone can have debts, and the selfishness make the soul blind to these debts. Alexander watching the missionary brothers' conversation and comments to André how necessary the work of clarification after that is necessary. That the sacred book that in the beginning was the verb, and here it's also necessary to use the verb in the beginning of enlightenment. Alexandre shows to André that incarnate late was case to one case of complete obsession, in addition to several other dark spirits around her. And spirit was one of the spirits was completely connected to her body via main energetic points. The darkness spirits were enslaved by Lady, and he will keep his revenge plans no matter how much missionary work's brother argue with him, trying to look for good things in his memory. Alexander explained to Andrea that he will need suffer to change. No matter how much this lady screams begging for help, her bad thoughts don't match with her actions, resonating her mental waves with those darkness spirit. The meeting begins between incarnates, and Andre realized that all magnetic emanations happening there, only that one young woman was receiving the emanations helping with her healing process. And described that she was feeling supported by her her great network. Sorry, Andrea described that she was feeling supported by the great network of protection vibrations emit great flow of mental energy, expelling all inferior thoughts. Alexandre explained to Andrea that only the patients who become self-doctors can achieve the consciousness necessary for self-healing. In the field of obsession, it's happening the same way. Alexandre asked André to pay attention to the medium who lead the meeting as he speak and feel what he was saying. The words become rays of light up his heart completely. Alexandre explained to André that it's not enough to pass the teachings. If you really don't feel them before and somehow had lived the experience, André understood the mechanic of the example. All these magnetic rays were being proved scientifically. How magnetic, how mental magnetic emanations of the example works. The energy of the example is a scientific fact. Alexandre also reports that 90% of the obsessed miss their obsessor when the magnetic work of the missionaries spirits keep them away. The mental link only changes when the feeling changes. Only one of the five only only one of the five does spirits, just a young woman who is getting healing by proposing herself to feel love. So she changed her mind, he changed her spirit, and changed the spirit that were obsessing her. Obsession never happened via one side only. So this is the end of the chapter. This chapter is so huge, a lot of teachers, but it's impossible to bring all those. So read the book. Comments, guys?
I would love to comment. Oh, sorry. Oh, because the last chapter is very short, so I don't. Is it okay if I comment real
No,
quick?
dear, if you want, you can go ahead. I just said that I'm gonna come in later.
So talkative today. I'm so
No, you can go ahead.
no, but it's very interesting with these because again, comparing our cultures here, and I don't mean to bring this, but I do because we don't really grow up studying obsession. I was telling the gentleman here, like, this is a hard chapter for me because it's so new, just studying and looking at it. But there's a quote here that says, that is why, Andre, even for psychiatrists enlightened by Christian spiritism, the majority of these cases are disconcerting, and they keep a lot of, like, he continues, Alexander, with different explanations. But it's true, a lot of these mental health illnesses and stuff, we we see it more. Well, there's that whole medical component, of course, but there's also this part, right, of the obsessors perhaps coming in and really understanding that. I can imagine being like a therapist and seeing the patient in a different way, right? Like, wow, there's something beyond. Let's get to that root. And I think that if medicine was to really have these treasures of knowledge, it would really change so many people's lives. I was watching this show on Netflix called The Hoarders, and it's very interesting how we listen. This is, I've seen a couple of programs, different channels, and it's just like an insight into how it's almost like they cannot see, they have this perception. I'm not saying that they're obsessed or anything, but I can imagine the process, like they're explaining here in the real life, right? That they just come and they can't see. It's like a veil. Like, wow, it's incredible. And they try to help and let's change the behaviors, but yet they always somehow they go back to those things. And so it makes me wonder too a lot about those connections. I don't know if anybody has a thought on that.
Yes, I think that a really interesting thing that this chapter brings us is that that person that has an obsessive spirit around, that person is obsessing that spirit somehow as well. So this is a very interesting thing for us to bring the table, because so we don't see like that evil spirit and that poor incarnate human being. No, they are both doing and exchanging those bad fluids to each other. So it's a much more complex situation. And to resolve that, this person that wants to be free, like, I want to be free from that evil spirit, you need to do your part. You can go to the Spiritist Center, receive magnetic passes, and at that exact moment, the spirit, they all those spirits, that obsessive spirits, they may go away, but they will come back, because that incarnate will pray and do everything to attract them back. So it's the book brings a really interesting perspective when it comes to taking responsibility for for our acts. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Chris is frozen. You're a little frozen again. Yes, you're frozen. He's frozen. Is he frozen for you?
He's frozen, but he moved a little bit now.
For me, he's like stuck. Okay, you're back. You're back.
Oh, let's go. Chapter the last phrase of the chapter. Obsession never happens via one side only. Just can resume. Chapter 19 passes and explain to us another work that would be done in that meeting. The main act passes by six spirits. Alexander explained they are technicians, spirits in magnetic sense. Work like them is so easy. Work like more than a will, the work needs to have qualities of high order knowledge, keep high mental standard, have self-control, balance of feelings, deep love for others, high understanding of life, high faith in divine power. So a huge playlist that we have to made in Nosla one day. In the sphere of the spirit, we can obtain these qualities more easily. However, in the sphere of incarnate, a sincere goodwill can supply the full lack of some of these qualities, but it does not replace all of them. Everyone will greater or less intensely can provide fraternal help in this task, but who truly want to serve the authorities of the superior spheres send benevolent spirit that indirectly guide the new. In addition to all these characteristics, the incarnate brothers also have to improve the psychological parts that's directly linked to psychic parts, reducing the excess of food that produce bad smell, high the emissions of magnetic rays, alcohol and other toxic substances, change the nervous system, altering psychic functions, cutting mental magnetic transmissions. Alexander introduced an ecleto to André, who leads the team of technicians spirits in the work of magnetic passes. Anacleto shows André incarnate one undergoing treatment. She doesn't usually pray, and in the morning she was discussing with her husband, poisoning her whole heart with these dark clouds are deadly mental matter. Anacleto put his high hand over her heart, and the bright rays in the few seconds dissolve all the dark clouds under her heart. With both hands, he equalized all her magnetic field damage by her mental matter. Anacleto shows André an older gentleman with dark clouds of toxic mental matter in his liver and throughout his hepatic system. Anacleto put his hand on his forehead and explained to André that he has a very strong and difficult temper, but that he truly wants to illuminate. But it's hard to accept some divine teachings that most of time makes him feel physically painful for taking him out of his comfort zone. But he is in a generative prayer now helping our work. His goodwill to make things right is his salvation. Two more magnetic work would happen. A pregnant woman was helped in time so as not to lose her baby, and another man with similar liver problems. All of those problems present there created just by mental matter. Anacleto ends the chapter saying that one day incarnates with the sublime power of thoughts, but now it's so very difficult to show them the sublime power of mind. Just in this chapter, we have a lot of teachings in this chapter, but I think the end of the chapter say all of we need to know. Because the incarnates will discover sublime power of the thoughts, but now it's so very difficult to show them the sublime power of the mind. So just a great. I think the our book learn us how important it is. You learn how our mind works. How you can do with our mind.
Yes, it's pretty awesome thinking the amount of power that we have within ourselves. It's very interesting. And it's very interesting to notice that the more dematerialized the planet gets, the more we discover those powers. Because, of course, those evil spirits, they would not, it would not be a nice thing for them to learn this type of thing. This type of resource, mind resource, it would be maybe tragic.
I was thinking of something, Jean. Because of the passes, I know with the pandemic coming in, I had never gotten a pass, so everything went virtual. And I think Vanessa and the SSVA, they have like a virtual pass, and it was so amazing. When she said, "You don't now." Because we're getting, we're past that already, we're evolving, we're in that, heading into that regeneration. We could literally do the passes at home now, and they have some audios there, and that is so empowering, like Chris describes here, because Andre does gives those visuals, like seeing those dark spots and being removed. And to think that, and I know there was one of the cases here where there was like a quarrel, I think it was between the husband and the wife or something like that. And like little things like that can come and change that vibration around us. We put in the past, whatever we find. There's so many on YouTube, all these, even a song, and just imagining, and just to think, like you said, that power, it's already like. in our own homes. I think that's one of the amazing things from after the pandemic, or where we're at. I don't
Yes.
even know where we're at in the pandemic now.
On Netflix, there used to be a documentary about a man. He got, I don't know if that's how we say this in English, but tetraplegic. Would that be
Oh yeah,
like
like
he
from
yes,
this.
he lost his all his movements, his arms movements and his legs movements. I don't know if Chris
Oh,
has watched it or you, but he got a hundred
Not
percent
yet.
cured by using he was every day mentalizing that his backbones were getting into place. Every day he used to do that and he got healed. It's crazy
is
seeing
this
something like that.
is this Dr. Joe Dispenza by any chance? And now he talks about
Yeah.
it and he wrote this book.
I don't know, I don't remember the
Oh,
name.
I love him. Oh my God, he
I
has a
don't remember what's his name.
Dr. Joe Dispenza. Is that him, Chris? Or he might have a similar story. Was it he in a
No, no.
accident? He was running, like he was doing some marathon. I don't know if he was on his bike in a car. Was that one? And the car like runs over him, and so he becomes like that. And he was like, he's a chiropractor. I wonder if it's that one.
Oh
His
yes, Joe Spencer. Yes, it's him.
yes, his
His
meditation,
documentary was on Netflix. Exactly.
his meditations. I'm saying his because but we know it's not really his, right?
We
But
watch.
it's very
And I have just discovered that he has like loads of books, and the titles are like "Heal Yourself,"
yes, and Chris,
"How to Heal Yourself."
because
That's amazing.
he works a lot
Thing.
with sound, Chris. You would really like it. And even in the meditations, when he does the meditation, he incorporates music with the centers, everything that Andre's talking about. I mean, he brings in the sign, which is a nice touch. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm telling
Oh, we will check.
you, check him out.
And just and no, I'm not gonna say this. I'm gonna say this to you guys when we're not live.
Yeah, or like you could just say, but it's yeah, yeah. Okay. But check him out. Very yeah. So I mean, passes can don't necessarily need to be like that, right? Like describe with the hand. We can. It's a mental state. I think that's what we're learning here.
We have here in Brazil um, a very respected professor when it comes to magnetism. Chris must know him. His name is Jacob Mello. Um, he has a couple of books. A couple of them were even edited by the Spiritist Federation, Brazilian Spiritist Federation. And he calls those passes by distance irradiations. That's how he calls them. It's very
Mm,
interesting. And it's a thing. It's really a thing here.
very nice.
Yeah.
So, dear, you can go ahead with the last chapter, okay?
I wasn't sure if
No, Chris, like, yeah, yeah, okay. Like, I'm done.
is he frozen? Is he coming back? I love to mess with you guys. Okay, so now after all these lessons, right? Like from the beginning till now, it's time to say farewell. But in this very emotional chapter, it was funny because Alexander is not going to be their teacher anymore. And Andre like lashes out. What? What do you mean you're not going to be the teacher anymore? You're like going to leave us halfway the lesson? No, no, no. You can't do that. You can't do that. And they're like, Andre, calm down. Don't be so selfish. Um, but Alexander's he's a teacher, and he connects well with his students. And and Andre is that student that he's like he just taking it all in, right? And um they have so then I explained to him to calm down. He calms down, and then Alexander keeps gives a speech, and we're just going to touch on like 2 points because we only have like 10 minutes. And then they end up with a beautiful prayer, and then he's ready to go on to his next adventure. So, um, one of the things that we can note here is that Andre, when as they're going to get ready to go to the speech, and farewell from Alexander, he mentions a little bit of the night sky, of the nature, the breeze, and just everything around him. The constellations show brightly, the moon, solar rays, and it's just nice to know that nature is everywhere. It's not just here on Earth. Like we're part of this ginormous ecosystem of the universe, and so it's just so beautiful to connect to nature. He also mentioned a little bit of the architecture and the hallways. They're going to go into that room where they're going to be hosting Alexander's farewell. And, he says, I was surprised by the wonderfully illuminated hall. There were no decorative luxury. It wasn't like luxurious inside. There was a star shaped chandelier, which gave a brilliant blue light and bestowed on the ambience a mysterious beauty blended with high quality spirituality, delicate and symbolic arabesques of natural flowers. I don't think that word. I've never seen it. Decorated the walls, giving us a sense of well-being and happiness. And I think I mentioned it. I'm not sure if it was here or somewhere. Leon Denis has a book, Spiritism in the Arts, and he goes into a little bit of detail of the architecture, things that we can't even imagine here. This is just like a replica of the enormous um, constructions and buildings and projects, and on the other side. And it was so fantastic because to think of a light so mysterious and yet blue, and it's so hard to comprehend, right? Because if I know, if I were to see a blue light, it would be dark, but this one's bright. And so I was like, Nora, don't be so literal. But then again, the spiritual senses, the spiritual architecture, the everything up there is just beautiful. So I thought that was a very nice point to end the book. And then you know there's some. Let me do one point because I only have like 2 minutes. So Alexander goes and he's talking. Do. Okay, this is a good one. His reminder. This is a kind of good teacher he is. We must face the rigors of service, but be familiar with the struggle and bear witness to our accomplishments. We cannot just rest on the comfort of affection, right? So he's telling us it's not, yes, it's love, but it's like in action, right? And we know there's so many ways to spread this love all over. Charity, fraternity, however we want to see it. So that was a great reminder for them. And he says, the field of work is enormous. So in it, try what you have learned, awakening your sleeping consciousness along the way. The learning experience provides us with knowledge. Life offers us practice. Let us join knowledge with love in our daily activities, and we will discover the divinity that pulsates within us, glorifying the earth that is awaiting our effective cooperation through balance and understanding. I mean, this is like beyond, right? And then in the prayer, this is just a couple of lines for us. Convert, praying to God, convert our difficulties into saintly encouragement. It says, we shall bring your light to wherever darkness persists. We shall spread the balm of your love wherever there is weeping from suffering. Strengthen our hearts so that the past may not disturb us and the future may not worry us, right? Confused by memories of millenary errors of the past. But we now wish with all the strength of our souls deliverance in your love forever. Give us balance. Put out the fire of passion that sometimes still erupts in the depths of our sentiments, in the unlimited love that you have reserved for us. And may we, partakers in your work of incessant progress, be able to follow your sublime designs at all times, making ourselves faithful servants of your light forever. And so be it. They finish with that prayer, and Andre just says there was just so much light and so excitement. And then he understood why Alexander needed to move on, right? That there's a feeling because it's hard. And I understand why Andre, he's still gonna miss him. So I thought that was nice because I would miss a teacher like that too. But then he understood, and yeah, it was beautiful, beautiful farewell, emotional.
Yes,
Alexandra.
this is quite beautiful and emotional. An interesting thing about you were talking about the blue light, and we were in this healing context here. A couple of friends that we have here in Brazil, even our friend Adna, that makes the same study with us, but in Portuguese, and they relate and they bring those amazing stories that when they are at the spirit center and the spirit is materialized and there are happening a couple of healing process, they do see that the most times they see a healing process, the color of the light is blue. It's very interesting, very, very, very interesting. And I talked a couple of times as well with Chris about the green light because we have read about the green light in a couple of books, and the book that tells the history of Saint Francis of Assisi, they have multiple times where the green light is used when it comes to healing somebody. Very, very, very interesting. Another interesting thing that I wanted to talk about before we ended and here is that Chris said that incarnates and discarnates can be mediums, and this is really interesting. And Chico Xavier has an amazing story that we have talked about. Um, Recently, he was at a spiritist center, and a friend of him and said that each medium is an inter-existing like being, an this would be the best way to translate an inter-existing being. And Shiko could not understand that. And then one day he was at the spiritist center. He was psychographing a message from a spirit that was trying to talk with his mom. And while he was psychographing, his spirit was called to psychograph a message in the spiritual plane. This is very interesting. So his body was on earth psychographing, and his spirit was in the spirit in a spiritual colony like Nosolar, a place like that, psychographing a message from a son again that was in a higher level, and his mom could not reach him because she was in a pretty lower zone. So Shiko was there to be the medium between them, and he was being medium to two different communications at the same time. So this is actually true.
Chico.
Discarnates, they
So
are yes, they are mediums. Yes, this is and it's very interesting because this friend of him, he it was before the 80s that he said that every medium is an inter-existing being, and Chico could not understand at that time. But when that happened, this professor appeared to him again and said, now do you understand that? And he said, yes, now I understand, because he was being medium at two different times at the same place. Do you guys, I think this farewell that the book brings us is beautiful. The end of this book is beautiful. I do like seeing this amount of mentors and instructors that Eloise is presenting us. We have seen Narcisia in Nosolar, Aniceto in the book The Messengers, now Alexandre. Nosolar, we said Clarencio as well, and loads of other instructors and mentors. Elysius, and that was also in Solar. So we have seen these amazing teachers that he has having the opportunity to be with and to learn with. This is very, very, very pretty, interesting, and it really makes us think about the cooperation law of the universe, that we need to understand, love each other, and that as a group, we're gonna one day see God. Do you guys wanna say something else before we finish?
I just want to say thank you. Beautiful. Love the book.
Chris?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Andre first because he guides us to have a scientific view of our mind, not nail, and you need to go um, to put ourselves in improve our mind how in- nowadays in day by after day you have to learn how minds and to improve it. Thank you.
Yes, this is very, very pretty. So next week we're gonna be here. I'm just checking to be sure. So next week we're gonna start the book. Workers of the Eternal Life, the fourth book of this collection that was brought for us from the spiritual world by Andrea Luis. This book is also very important, very emotional. Workers of the Eternal Life, very interesting book as well. So next week we're going to be here again, starting a new book. I'm very happy that we're finishing one more book. Very, very happy. We've finished the third book. I can just thank you, my two great friends that are helping me to understand and study these books. I'm very, very, very grateful to God for you guys. I want to thank as well our friends that are here, our friend Lana that is always with us, Marisa and Cardiac Radio people are here as well. Thank you guys. Thank you all very much. So next week we're here starting a new book. I'm very, very, very grateful. See you guys next week.
See you. Bye.
Thank you.